Now, in the early 80s, many of the first cases involved gay men. It's unusual to find a heterosexual woman among those infected at that time, but in Baltimore, Stephanie Brooks Wiggins was one of the first. Diagnosed in 1986, she joins us now live in the studio with us. Stephanie, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
Take me back to 1986. I mean, what had been going through your mind at that point? Because so many people were dying.
Yes, and I had never heard of the HIV virus. It was Greek to me when they told me that I had been exposed to the virus. And
I mean, back then it was a death sentence for a lot of people.
yes, and they told you that you had been exposed and that you were going to die. The prognosis was not good at all. And they sent you to Hopkins to be tested and to get some counseling, because that's about all they could do.
Counseling?
Counseling, yes, to keep you from jumping off the roof. Or,
like grief counseling?
Yeah, grief counseling and trying to maintain your lifestyle. You know, try to find out who your partners were, how you were functioning at home, how your family members were reacting, those kinds of things.
And you also said you were involved in some of the first AZT trials.
Yes, I was involved in one of the first AZT trials at Hopkins, and it was horrible. The drugs were very strong. You had to take them a lot of times during the day, and it was miserable. I eventually came out of the trial because I felt like if I was going to die, I was going to die living well and not being miserable and depressed and sick.
So you said in the 90s, that's when you got really, really sick. You spent a lot of time in the hospital, and you kind of had an epiphany of what you were going to do.
Yes, I did. I had an epiphany, and I began to think about the fact that people weren't being educated. Nobody was talking about women and HIV. And so I started working for HERO with their database, and I started getting involved in different community organizations. And I must say that at that time, gay men were the ones who were on the front lines fighting for medication and medical services. And most of the people that I encountered were gay men, and they taught me a lot about survival and advocacy and how to get through the system.
And you continue that advocacy. Now, you're involved in the Baltimore City AIDS and HIV Commission. I've just joined that commission with you. But, I mean, you've been doing this for a while. I mean,
yes.
What's the message? Why is it so important?
Well, it's important because now people can live with HIV. Nobody would wish that on anybody, but you can live, and you can function, and you can have a good life. I do a lot of advocacy work because it heals me. It has kept me alive for 30 years, and it also, it's rewarding to see when people get help.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
You know, we have a lot of information about this on our website. You know, this fight for AIDS is happening across the world, even here in Baltimore. A lot of new cases popping up in our state. We have the third highest rate of HIV cases, and you can get a closer look at the CDC stats at our website, abc2news.com/infocus.